Hi, welcome back to Mr. Slover's Math. Today we're going to focus on measures of central tendency. And actually we're starting a new unit. We're starting Unit 2, and this unit is all about statistics. Now, statistics can get very in-depth and very complicated and complex very quickly. We are just talking about a few of the main themes of statistics, the main concepts, and we're not going that in-depth. So I just want to forewarn you that, yes, statistics can be complicated, but that is not the intent of this unit. We're just touching base on a few different aspects, ones that you're going to see outside of the classroom. So today we're going to identify measures of central tendency. So this was just a warm-up getting you to recall mean, median, and mode. It's okay if you don't, because we're going to talk about it here in a minute. But we are focusing on measures of central tendency. And when you use the mean, median, mode, we can use that to measure the spread of a data set in an attempt to describe the central location or summary of the data. So sometimes just giving the mean or the average doesn't really reflect too well on what exactly the data is telling us. So sometimes we have to describe it using a different measure of central tendency. So let's start with the mean. To find the mean, or the average, you add up all of the numbers and divide by how many total numbers there are. So if there are 10 data points or 10 numbers, you're dividing that total by 10. The median, think about where a median is in a car or when you're driving. It's in the middle of the road. Same thing here. It's the middle number when all the numbers are written from smallest to largest. If there are two numbers, so right here, if there are two numbers in the center, you will add them up and divide by 2. You will see that every now and then, not all the time, but every now and then. And then the mode is a number that occurs the most often or repeats more than others. So I want the one that repeats the most. So there's your mean, your median, and your mode. So now we're extending that knowledge and using the mean, median, and mode to describe some data. So the best time to use the mean is when all the numbers are close together and there's no outliers. Okay? Outliers are numbers that lie outside or are much smaller or bigger than the other values. So an example of an outlier, if I have the data set 0, 1000, 1002, 1005, 1010, 0 is the outlier. Everything else is right around 1000. The second time, the middle one, the median. The best time to use the median is when there is one number that stands out from the rest, and the rest are close together. So you're using it if there's an outlier. So for the example I just said, where I had 0 and 1000 and 1002 and 1004, I would use the median to describe my data. Because if I use the mean or the average, that number is not really going to reflect what I want, because 0 and 1000, there's such a big gap in between so many numbers that it's going to bring down my average quite a bit. So I would use the median to describe it. And actually the median is used the most often when it talks about median income for a neighborhood or the median salary for some sort of position. A lot of companies or a lot of newspapers talk about the median of something. So they're just using the middle number to describe that set of data. And then the last one is the mode. So the best time to use that is when there's one or multiple numbers that occur over and over again. So we're going to look at two different examples in action. So the frequency table is showing the number of jobs. This frequency table is something that you might see in a newspaper or an article or on TV. It is just a way to represent the information. It's saying that there were 2 students that had 0 job offers. 2 students had 1 job offer. 4 students had 2 job offers. 5 students had 3 job offers, and 2 students had 4 job offers. That's all this is saying. It's telling you the data the information in a different way. For purposes of what we're going to do, we're going to take that information and we're going to turn it into this, just our string of information. So I had 2 students that had 0 job offers, 2 students that had 1 job offer, so on and so forth. Now I do want to mention that yes, the zeros have to be in your data set because 0 does represent something. 0 job offers mean no one wanted to hire them. So 0 does represent something. You have to include it in your data, otherwise your data is not accurate. So we're going to add up all of these numbers here. And when we add them all up, we get 33. And we divide by 15, and that's how many data points there were. There were 15 data points, and we end up getting 2.2. So that's our average. So the average was 1 student would get right around 2 job offers per student. The middle number, since this is in order, we're just finding the middle number, is 2. And then the mode is the number that we see the most. Yes, 0, 1, 2, and 4 also repeat, but 3 is the number that I see the most, and that's what the mode is, the number that appears most often. So those are our 3 measures of central tendency. And then the last question is asking us to pick the one that best describes the data. So the mean was all the numbers were close together. The median was I had an outlier, so that's why I would use that. Or the mode was I had several numbers that repeated. So because I have several different numbers that repeat, I would say the mode is the best way to describe my data. And that's because there's several repeating numbers. So example 2. So now my numbers are getting a little bit larger, which is okay. And I'm trying to find how many minutes a day that a student spends on the internet. So I find the mean, I add everything up, 1011 divided by 19 is 112.3. The middle number is 75, and the mode, there is no number that repeats, so I'm writing none. Don't leave it blank, that means you skipped it, and don't write 0. 0 represents something. That means 0 minutes, in this case 0 minutes on the internet. So if there is no mode, you're writing none. So now I have to decide which measure of center would be the best to describe this data. Well, I don't really have any numbers that repeat, so I'm not going to choose mode. And it comes down to the mean and the median. And there's arguments for both one. I'm not going to get into very specifics on which one as long as you can defend it. But I would probably say that this one would go with the mean. I don't really have a whole lot of outliers. Okay? But there's also the argument that the median could work as well, because sometimes these could be considered outliers, right? 225 could be considered an outlier, right? Because these numbers are kind of small and then these get larger. But for purposes of today, I'm going to go with the mean. So this right here, this is all the important information that you need. And it tells you how to find the average or the mean. It tells you about the median, which is the middle number, and the mode, the number that appears most often. And then these are the things that tell us why we are choosing the mode to describe our data, or why we are choosing the median to describe our data.